E.G. Dunberg, 1996-2010. Dunberg, 1996, 69, 71. The cognitive basis of Dunberg's number is inferred from comparative studies of non-human primates, which suggest a correlation between neocortex size and group size in various species of monkeys and apes. Dunberg, 1902. The significance of those findings of primate studies is not in question here, only whether they can be extended in any simple or direct way to our own species. But et al. 2019, Sioso Hill et al. 2011, Migliano et al. 2017, Sikora et al. 2017, Bloch 2013, Anderson 1991, Siebert et al. 2019 and Compaq Bloch 2008, Fisher 1977, 454, C. Specially Childe 1950. We hope to treat the rich African material outside ancient Egypt more fully in future work, along with many other valuable cases that could be included here, so as the pebble traditions of the American Southwest, to name but one. For important existing of discussions of African material, which bear out a number of our observations about the decentralized and self-organizing nature of early cities. CEG S. McIntosh 2009, R. McIntosh 2005. Most archaeologists are generally happy to call any inhabited settlement around 150 hectares or certainly over 200 hectares or in such a city. See for example Roger 1995, Fleming 2009, Hashim. For direct evidence in migration to Teotihuacan based on isotopy studies of human remains, see Wood et al. 2008. For similar evidence at Harappa, see Valentine et al. 2015. For a general discussion of neighborhoods and their role in the formation of early cities, Smith 2015. Plunkett and Urunuela 2006, Day et al. 2007, Pennington et al. 2016, C. Purnell 2003, Serrat 1997, Steering et al. 2017, C. Purnell 2003, Scott 2017. For China, C. Underhill et al. 2008. For Peru, C. Cedi Solis Haas, and Kramer 2001. Inomat et al. 2020. They see here the key site here is in Tabasco State and goes by the name of Aguada Phoenix, dated between 1000 and 800 BC. Is now recognized as the oldest monumental construction ever found in the Maya and the largest in the entire prehispanic history of the region. Aguada Phoenix is by no means an outlier. Massive architectural features implying communal labor on the scale of ancient Egyptian pyramids have now been found at numerous sites in the Maya lowlands and many centuries before the inception of classic Maya kingship. Mostly three comprised not pyramids, but earthen platforms of staggering proportions and horizontal extent, carefully laid out in roughly E-shaped formations. The function remains unclear, as most of these sites were refilled by remote sensing using LIDAR technology and are yet to be excavated on any scale. Anthony 2007. Much of this research, published exclusively in Russian, was cutting edge by the standards of the time, including aerial photography, subsurface prospection, and careful excavation. For summaries and descriptions in English, see Fideico 1996, Benotti and Corfin, Piotrowski 2012, Sumilovsky, Novenko, and Giseke 2017. What distinguishes the soil? What distinguishes the soils in physical terms in their high humus content and capacity for storing moisture. Anthony 2007 160 74. To get a sense of relative scale, consider that just this vacant center of a megasite alone could have contained a large neolithic town such as Çatalhöyük more than twice over. Scientific dating shows that most of the larger most of the larger known megasites were contemporaneous. Mulder et al. 2016 167a. Olrau et al. 2016, Sumilovsky, Tovenko, and Giseke 2017. Nebia et al. 2018 present evidence in support of this extreme seasonal model while leaving room for other possibilities. 29. The people of the megasites had a tradition of deliberately burning of their houses, which complicates matters for modern analysis trying to ascertain how how much of each site was in use simultaneously. It's not known why this burning was done, for ritual purposes or hygiene or what. Did it take place within settlements, or so part of the mega site was living and growing, with the other part lingering, or as a sort of house cemetery? Ordinarily, careful modeling of high precision radiocarbon dates would allow archaeologists to resolve such issues. Frustratingly, in this case, an anomaly in the calibration curve for the 4th millennium BC is preventing them from doing so. Kirles and Dal Corso 2016. Chapman and Gaidakska 2003, Mansura 2005. One should also allow for different answers varying from one megasite to another. For example, some of them, such as Majdanecka and Nebelivska, mobilize their populations to dig perimeter ditches, marking out a garden space between the outer circuit of houses or the edge of settlement. Others, such as Tajanki, did not. It is worth stressing that these ditches cannot possibly have functioned as fortifications or defenses of any kind. They were shallow, with frequent gaps, so that the people, so that people could come and go. It's worth stressing this because early scholarship often viewed the megasites as refuge towns formed for the defense of local population, a view that has now been largely abandoned in the absence of any clear evidence for warfare or other forms of conflict. See Chapman 2010, Chapman, Gaidarska, et al. 2016, Bali 2010, Lazarovici 2010. As John Chapman and colleagues show, there is nothing in these assembly houses to suggest the host a political or religious upper class, thus expecting the architectural and artifactual reflections of a hierarchy society with elites ruling over thousands of inhabitants in the Tripilia megasites will be disappointed. Chapman, Kaidaska, and Hell 2016 120. Aside from the scale and sometimes an unaccentuated entranceway, these buildings are similar in their furnishings to ordinary dwellings, except for the interesting absence of utensils for the preparation and storage of food. They have none of the positional characteristics of ritual or administrative center, and do not seem to have been permanently occupied of any scale, which supports the idea that they were used for periodic, perhaps seasonal gatherings. Chapman, Gaidaska, and Hell 2016. The bus system of settlement organization is described by Marcia Asser in Chapter 5 of her book Mathematics Elsewhere 2004. We cannot do justice to the subtleties of Asser's to account here of the mathematical insights she brings and refer interested readers to her study and to the original ethnographic material she relies on. Oath 1981, Asser 2004-113. As one of the leading excavators, the prehistorian Johannes Muller 2016 304 puts it the new and unique character of spatial organization in Latrivilla or Tripolia megasites displays some insights into human and group behavior which might still be relevant for us today. Both the ability of non-literate societies to agglomerate in huge population groups under rural conditions of production, distribution, and consumption, and the ability to avoid unnecessary social pyramids and instead practice of a more public structure of decision making reminds us of our possibilities and abilities. 39. Heartland of Cities was the title of a landmark ecological survey analysis of the central Mesopotamian floodplain by Robert McCormick Adams, 1981. The marshes of southern Iraq are home to the Mardan, sometimes called Mars Arabs, best known to Europeans through the writing of Wilfred de Sigar. The marshes were systematically drained by Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath government in an act of political retribution, leading to the mass displacement of the indigenous population and enormous damage to this ancient inhabitant. Since 2003, there have been sustained and partially successful efforts to reconstitute the marshes and their ancestral communities and ways of life. Odds et al. 2007. Key evidence is in Syria, where military conflict has interrupted archaeological work at sites like Tel Brak on the Kabul River, a major tributary on the Euphrates. Archaeologists call these grasslands in northern Mesopotamia the dry farming zone because agriculture based on rainfall was possible there. The contrast with southern Mesopotamia, an arid zone where irrigation from the major rivers were mandatory for cereal farming. These months, these months are the great material occasions of human life and death known by the Arabic hotel built up two successive foundations and collapse of mud brick architecture over or often hundreds of generations. For a survey of the submarine world, see Crawford ed. 2013. This also fitted rather well with British colonial concerns in the modern region they called Mesopotamia, which were based on a policy of elevating and occasionally creating local monarchies favorable to their own interests. See Canadian 2001, see Delhi 2000, Wengrow, Wengrow 2010, 131, 6, Steinkeller 2015. Scribes sometimes use another word pala meaning term or cycle to refer coffee labor and also to succession of royal dynasties, but this is a later development. It is interesting it is interesting to compare the whole phenomenon with the Malagasy Phenompuana or surface, a theoretical and limited level duty or to the monarchy. In this case, the monarch's own family was exempt, but these are similar accounts of the absolute equality of everyone who came together to dig earth on royal projects and the chief enthusiasm with which with which they did so. Grabe 2007a 265-7. Steinkeller 20, 2015 149-50. Written evidence from various periods of Mesopotamian history shows that rulers quite routinely proclaimed debt amnesties on jubilees and other festive occasions, wiping the slate clean wiping the slate clean for the subjects and allowing them to resume a productive civic life. Redemption of acute debts, either by royal proclamation or in year of forgiveness, made good fiscal sense. It was a mechanism for restoring balance to the economy of Mesopotamian cities, and by releasing debtors and their kin for servitude, it allowed them to continue living productive civic lives. See Graeber 2011, Hudson 2018. Women were citizens and online. Some of these earliest stone monuments from anywhere in Mesopotamia record transactions between male and female owners who appear as legal parties on an equal footing. Women also held his rank in temples, and female royals reigned as scribes. If their husbands fell into debt, they could become acting heads of households. Women also formed the backbone of Mesopotamia's prolific textile industry, which financed its foreign trade ventures. They worked in temples or other large institutions, often, often under the supervision of other men who received land allotments in similar proportions to men. Some women were independent financial operators, issuing credit, issuing credit to other women. See in General Sagarel 1986, One Day Europe 1989, Reich 2007, Assegrave 2012. Some of the earliest documentation of the matters comes from Girsu in the city-state of Lagash around the middle of the 3rd millennium BC and comprise some 1,800 cuneiform texts derived mostly from an institution named the House of the Woman and later called the House of the Goddess Baba, for which see Karachi 2016. Slavery, the keeping of slaves or property in private households, was so deeply rooted in the economy and society of classical Greece that many felt justified in defining Greek cities as slave societies. We find no views equivalent to this in ancient Mesopotamia. Temples and places held prisoners of war and debt revolters as slaves, or semi-free workers who performed manual tasks such as grain grinding or potterage all year round for food rations and owned no land of their own. Even then, they formed only a minority of the workplace in the public sector. Outright chattel slavery also existed, but played no comparably central role in the Mesopotamian economy. See Grabe 1973, Paul ed. 1987, Steinkeller and Hudson 2015, Pasim. Jacobsen 1943. She also postgate 1992, 80, 81. Barjamovic 2004, 15, 50 and 7. Fleming 2004. As John Wills 1970 noted long ago, something of the conduct of assemblies is likely preserved in the speeches ascribed to gods and goddesses in Mesopotamian myths. The deities too confined to sit in the assemblies where they exhibit skills of rhetoric, persuasive speech, logical argumentation, and occasional sophistry. Pajamovic 2004, 52. On such urban village as Nicholas Posket 1997, 1992, 81 2 terms it is documented in a tablet recovered from the city of Esnuna in the Diyala Valley, which lists Amorites living in the city according to their wards, designated by the names of male family heads, and their sons. C. E.G. van de Mierop, 1999, especially P. 123, EBIT 160-61. Stone and Zimanski 1995 123. Fleming 2009 1-2. Fleming 2009 197 9 notes the Tradition at Urkes of a powerful collective balance to the leadership by kings may be the inheritance of a long urban history, and that the council of elders cannot possibly be construed as part of the king's own cycle of advisors. It was rather an entirely independent political force of some antiquity, a collective for urban leadership which cannot be regarded as a minor player in a primary monarchic framework. To reconstruct early urban political systems in Mesopotamia, Jacobsen relied especially on the story of Gilgamesh and Agar, a brief epic composition about the war between Ur and Kish, which describes a city council divided into two chambers. Hence, population estimates for the 4th millennium BC are based almost entirely on topographical surveys and distributions of surface finds. See Nissen 2002, Nissen, Demro, and Englund 1993. Englund 1998, 3241, Nissen 2002. A significant number of monumental structures on Iana complex are spectacular and large versions of a common household type, the so-called tripartite house form, which is ubiquitous in villages of the preceding Ubaid period of the 5th millennium BC. Specialists specialists debate whether some of these buildings might have been private palaces rather than temples, but in fact they don't resemble later places or temples very much. In a sense, they are upscaled versions of traditional house forms where meetings of large numbers of people probably took place in the idiom of extended family under the patronage of deity in residence. Wengrow 1998, Urban 2014. The first compelling examples of palaces architecture in cities of the southern Mesopotamian alluvium come on the centuries later in the early dynastic period. Muri 1964. C. Kuzman et al. 2019 for a magnificent survey of Uruk's architectural development over the ages, although we note that the interpretation placed down those aspects of urban planning we would see as clearly relating to civic participation, especially with regard to the early phases of the Iana sanctuary. They tend to assume, even in the absence of written evidence, that any sort of grand architectural project must necessarily have been intended to establish the exclusively of a ruling elite. 67. Among them are early copies of the so-called titles and professions list, which was widely reproduced in later times and includes, among other things, terms for various kinds of judges, mayors, priests, chairs of the assembly, ambassadors, messengers, overseers of locks, groups, fields and farming equipment, and also of putting and metalworking. Nissen, Demro, and Englund 1993, 110, 11 review the immense difficulties of extracting any kind of social history from such documents, which depends on finding corroborations between particular terms and their recurrence in functional administrative texts. The same period, and then, even then, is somewhat tendencies. Though we should also note that at least by Old Babylonian times, circa 2000 1500 BC. Much scribal instruction also went on in private households. Englund 1988, Bartas 2015. There is a possibility somewhere already slaves or war captives at this time. Englund 2009. And as we'll see, this becomes much more commonplace later. Indeed, it is possible that what was originally a charitable organization gradually transformed as captives were added to the mix. For the demographic composition of the temple workplace in the Uruk period, see also Liverani 1998. Another aspect of quality control in urban temples was the use of cylinder seals. These tiny, near indestructible carved stones are our main source of knowledge for about 3,000 years of image making in the Middle East, from the time of the first cities to the Persian Empire, circa 3500 until 500 BC. They had many functions and were not simply art objects. In fact, cylinder seals were among the earliest devices for mechanically reproducing complex images done by rolling the seal onto a strip of block or clay to make raised figures and signs appear, so they stand at the beginning of print media. They were impressed on inscribed clay tablets, but also marked clay, but also marked clay stoppers of jars containing foods and drink. In this way, tiny images of people, animals, monsters, gods, and so on were made to guard and authorize the contents, which distinguished the otherwise standard products of temple and later palace workshops and guaranteed their authenticity as they passed among unknown practice. See Wengrow 2008. Some archaeologists once believed this fact encompassed among everything that the first Mesopotamian cities were temple states governed on the basis of theocratic socialism. This thesis has been convincingly refuted. See Foster 1981. We don't really know what economic life was like outside the area administered by the temples. We just know that all the temples we just know that the temples administered a certain portion of the economy, but not all, and that they had nothing like political sovereignty. 73. On the Uruk, was the figure of the goddess, probably Inanna, is larger than the males who march towards her. The only exception is the figure who approaches her directly at the head of the parade, which is mostly dust due to a break in the vessel but is most likely the same standard male figure that appears on cylinder seals and other monuments on the time with his characteristic bird hair gathered into a chinon and long woven garments. It is impossible to tell what status this male figure refers to or if it was occupied on a heredity or rotating basis. The goddess wears a long robe which almost completely disguises the contours of her body, while the smaller male figures appear nude and agree bisexualist when go 1998 792 Bahrani 2002, CUV 1995, Van de Mierop 2013 283 for C. Algas 1993. There is no hint of these colonies in the administrative correspondence of the modern city, and writing was hardly used in the colonies themselves. In a sense, these were the sacred origins of what we now call commodity branding. See Wengrow 2008. See Frangipane 2012, Hellwig 2012, Frangipane 2006, Hassett and Saglam Timur 2018, Treherne 1995, 129. Among the more remarkable finds from the early Bronze Age cemetery at Basu Hoyuk in the eastern Anatolia is an early set of sculpted gaming pieces, largely as predicted, in fact, by Andrew Serrat 1996, and see also Wengrow 2011. When urban and upland societies converge, a third element emerged which resembles neither the tribal aristocracies nor the more egalitarian cities. Archaeologists know this other element as the Kura access of Transcaucasian culture, but it has proved hard to define in terms of settlement types, which vary widely within it. For archaeologists, What identifies of Transcaucasian culture, above all, is its high Lebanese pottery, which achieved a remarkable distribution extending south from the Caucasus as well as the Jordan Valley. Offers such considerable extensive methods for making pottery and other distinctive craft products still remarkably constant, suggesting to some the migration of artisans and perhaps even whole communities to certain remote locations. Such diaspora groups seem to have been widely involved in the circulation and working of metals, especially copper. They carried with them certain other distinctive practices, such as the use of portable cooking hobs, sometimes decorated with faces, which supported lids, which supported leaded pots used to prepare a season based on stews and casseroles, and a somewhat eccentric practice in regions where roasting and baking food in fixed ovens was an age was an age-old practice going back to Neolithic times. See Wilkinson 2014 with further references. Recent work attributes the eventual decline of the Indus civilization to changes in the flood regime of the major river systems, prompted by alterations in the monsoon cycle. This is most evident in the drying up of the Gagahakra walls of major coast of the Indus and the shift of human settlement to more easily watered areas where the Indus meets the rivers of Punjab or to parts of the Indo-Gangetic plain which still fell within the catchment of the monsoon belt. Gyosan et al. 2012. For a review of the debate, see Green 2020, who develops an argument that the Indus civilization was a case of egalitarian cities but along rather different lines to our own. For general overviews of the Indus civilization and further description of the major sites, see Kenoyer 1998, Porcel 2002, Ratnagar 2016. For an overview of the Indus Valley's far-flung commercial and cultural contrasts in the Bronze Age, see Ratnagar 2004, Wright 2010. For the Indus scripts, in the general see Porcel 1996 for the Dholavira street sign, Subramanian 2010 for the function of Indus seals, Furness 2018. C. Johnson 1998, C. Johnson 1993, Wright 2010 107 10, C. Risman 1988, Kenoyer 1992, H. M. L. Miller 2000, Fidal 2000, Kenoyer 1992, H. M. L. Miller 2000, Vidal 2000. The Indus civilization is something of faceless social cultural system. Individuals, ever prominent ones, do not readily emerge from the archaeological record as they do in Mesopotamia and dynasty Egypt. For example, there are no clear signs of kingship in the form of sculpture or palaces. There is no evidence for a state bureaucracy or the other trappings of stateness. Porcel 2002 6. Daniel Miller 1985. Perspective discussion of these points remains important. As discussed by, among others, Lambert Karlowski 1999, it is sometimes objected that viewing the Bronze Age civilization of the Indus Valley through the lens of caste means painting an artificially timeless picture of South Asian societies and thus slipping into Orientalist tropes because the earliest written mention of the caste system and its basic social distinctions of Varnas occurs only around a millennium later in the hymns of the Rig Veda. In many ways, is a puzzling and to some extent self-defeating objection because it only makes sense if one assumes that a social system based on chess principles cannot itself evolve in the same way that, say, class or federal systems undergo important structural transformation over time. There are certainly those who have explicitly taken this position, most famously Dumont 1972. Obviously, however, that is not the position we are taking here, nor do we see any continuity in this context between race, language, and racial identity, and the false equation which has hampered this kinds of discussions in the past. On this position, Civitas important 2010 reassessment of Mohenjo-Daro and its archaeological record. The general scarcity of weapons from Harappan sites remains striking, but as Koch 2005 points out, in other Bronze Age civilizations, e.g. Egypt, China, Mesopotamia, weaponry tends to be found in burials rather than settlements, so he reasons the feasibility of weapon and warfare in the Indus Valley may be greatly reduced by an overall lack of mineral means. As he also points out, though there is no evidence that weapons were used as a symbol of authority by contrast with Mesopotamia, for instance, or any or in or in any way form a significant part of elite identity in the Indus civilization. What is definitely present in the glorification of weapons and the kind of people who employ them. Obviously, it's partly just the just the desire to preserve the credit for having invented democracy for something called the West. Part of the explanation might also lie in the fact that academia itself is organized in an extremely hierarchical fashion, and most scholars therefore have little or no experience of making democratic decisions themselves, and find it hard to imagine anyone else doing so as a result. Gombrich, 1988. 4950 110 FF. See also Muhlenberg and Payne 1996 35 6. As with all such cases, just about everything on the topic of early Indian democracy is contested. The earliest literary sources, the Vedas, assume a society that's entirely rural and that monarchy is the only possible form of government, though some Indian scholars detect traces of earlier democratic institutions. Sharma, 1968. However, by the time of Buddhas in the 5th century BC, the Ganges Valley was home to a host of city-states, small republics and confederations, many of which the Ghana Sangha appear to have been governed by assemblies made up of, uh, of all male members of the royal case. Greek travelers like Megasthenes were perfectly willing to describe them as democracies, since Greek democracies were basically the same thing, but, but contemporary scholars debate how democratic they really were. The entire discussion seems to be premised on the assumption that democracy was some sort of remarkable historical breakthrough rather than a habit of self-governance that would have been available in any historical period. See, for example, Saran 1983, Tapar 1984. Our thanks to Matthew Milligan for guiding us to relevant source material, although he bears no responsibility for the use we've made of it. 100 of the sacred principle of and Gates Seekers and Gates 1978, Warren 1993, Lansing 1991, and as a good in Wengrow 2015, Porcel 2008, 2002, Pasim, Fidel 2010. Independent cities were only entirely abolished in Europe in the 17th and 19th centuries as part of the creation of the modern nation state. European empires and the creation of the modern interstate system in the 20th century succeeded in wiping out any trace of them in other parts of the world. Berkeley 1999, Steinke and Ching 2014. Interestingly, some of the smallest are in Henan itself, the heartland of the latter named dynasties. The thought of Wang Qinghang, Wang Chenggang, associated with the Xia dynasty, the semi-legendary precursor to the Shang, as a total walled area of around 30 hectares. See Liu and Chen 2012 to 122. Ibn Qasim, Renfu and Liu 2018. Some scholars initially suggested that the Longshan period was an age of high shamanism, an appeal to the later myth of Pangu, who praised heaven and earth but in such a way that only those with spiritual powers could journey between them. Others at first related it to classical legends of Wengrow, the period of 10,000 states before power and was localized to the Xia, Shang and Zhou dynasties. See Zhang 1999, Zhang et al. 2018, He 2013, 269, Ibid, He 2018.